Welcome to Channel Security Secrets. I'm Lou Rabon. On this show, we expose the untold secrets and critical insights from the people shaping the future of cybersecurity sales in the Trusted Advisor channel. If you're looking to up your game around selling security, stick around. Channel Security Secrets is brought to you by Cyber Defense Group, on a mission to shift cybersecurity from reactive to resilient. I'm really looking forward to our guest today. He's a technology leader, keynote speaker, podcast host, and best-selling author. He's the author of the best-selling book, You Are Enough, host of the Council Culture podcast, ranked in the top 1% globally. He built a channel advisory firm that empowers suppliers to boost visibility and drive growth. He's the founder and CEO of the Channel Standard. Eric Brooker, welcome to the show.
Good to be here. I always love conversations with you. So excited about the conversation today.
Yes. Likewise. And, just to jump into it, tell us, Eric, you've got a storied background, obviously, and we're going to go through some of the things you've done in the past, but what can you tell our listeners the biggest secret to your successes in the channel?
It's interesting. You and I have had a lot of conversations over the last couple of months. And I think for me, when I really sit on that question, I think of folks in this industry, particularly after you and I bumped into each other at a show, just a couple of weeks ago. I've got a lot of relationships in the channel with people I've never transacted with. And some would argue maybe that's not where I should be investing my time, but people do business with people that they like and trust. I made a conscious decision probably early in my professional career that I wasn't going to focus on, I'm going to get to know Lou, I'm going to get to know Ian, or I'm going to get to know Patrick for the sake of doing business. I think we're all sort of drawn to people that we want to get to know and be around. I can think of a couple people, again, I've not transacted with, but if I'm honest with myself, they have been great resources to get connected to the other folks in the channel that would. So I think the big piece for me, in short, is just building relationships for relationships' sake and not having any other motive or agenda.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I hear you. I think you had told me a story of someone that it was actually years before you had kind of met that person. You helped them with something. They weren't even really necessarily in the same industry. And then afterwards, many years down the road, they actually were in a position to help you out. I think that's completely relevant. Like, not selling, if you're constantly selling and you're looking at everyone like a piggy bank that might be able to, help you achieve your dreams. I think people can sniff that, and it's kind of repellent in a way.
I'll share a story, maybe a little bit vulnerably, but when I set out to launch my own company, I didn't have any clients. I had money in the bank, and it was unexpected. I'd gotten laid off, got a really great sort of golden parachute, if you will. At one point in that journey, I had put a note out on LinkedIn that it was really vague. It was intentionally vague because I didn't want to admit that I was looking for work. I didn't want to admit that I was struggling to get the business off the ground. And so it was just super vague. I might be looking for work. I might be looking for clients. I am looking to pay my bills next month. Someone help. And I got a lot of calls like, hey, what are you really looking for? And an individual, we'll call him Ryan mostly because that's his name, but we won't name his company. But Ryan called and he said, hey, I saw your post and I want to help. And I just sat there and I listened because, again, I was early enough in this now 3-year-long journey of entrepreneurship where I wasn't even ready to tell him I needed work. I just needed money. I needed some consistency. Grateful to be on the backside of that. But what Ryan said to me is, Eric, you're an entrepreneur. I want to help. What can my company buy from you to keep you down the path that is clearly where you're supposed to be? Ryan and I had bumped into each other over the years, sort of that old adage of do unto others, if you will. I'd always been good to Ryan. Ryan had always been good to me. And I needed something, i.e., a job or some stability financially. And Ryan, I didn't call him, but Ryan picked up and said, "Hey, I got you. Let's figure it out."
It's amazing. And that was not even intentional on your part. Like someday Ryan's going to do this for me. It's just being a good person, being genuine. Ultimately, I think anyone's success is, we're standing on the shoulders of our parents, shoulders of our grandparents, shoulders of all the people that helped us to where we are at, and our friends too. And sometimes, yeah, friends come from strange places that you wouldn't expect. Obviously Ryan saw something in you that was he could tell this was a passion of yours and he wanted to support that. And, that's excellent. That really is a testament to who you are as a person.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So that's a good secret, I think, for anyone, because one of the through lines of this podcast, it's really interesting for me because I'm getting to learn. The channel's relatively new to me as well, and what works, what doesn't. I'm a practitioner, a security guy. I'd normally, if I weren't doing this, I'd have a C-level title somewhere in like a CISO at whatever company, and I'd probably be bored out of my mind. So I'm really happy to be doing it, but the channel stuff is new, and the sales stuff, like the mechanics of sales, is new. And for practitioners, we often look at it like, oh yeah, salespeople, you just have to be charming and have a good Rolodex and know how to speak to people or whatever. And what I've learned over this journey is that's absolutely not the case. The people that are most successful in this channel are people that, generally in life, it's yes, you're genuine. Yes, you truly want to help. You've got passion for what you do. And you've got integrity too. So I think non-transactional sellers are the ones that, especially in this channel, because this channel is about relationships. Everything's about relationships, but to your point of what your secret is, being a person in this channel with relationships, that's something that it's such a small world too. There's currency there.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's interesting, the consulting practice that I have now and has been around for 3 years, I've never thought of it this way. A lot of what I do is figure out for our clients, the suppliers, who their ideal partner profile is, not ICP, but ideal partner profile. Who are the trusted advisors that are most likely to sell your stuff? And what I'm hearing from you is something that I had never thought of. The reason these agents pick up the phone is because many of them I've established relationships with, never sold through, and now I need some help. But now I've got the relationship capital where I can pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Lou, I've got a new supplier that might be a really good fit in your portfolio. Would you give me candid feedback? Would you take a look at this supplier and let me know if you think there's value?"
Big time. We actually we call that an ITAP, ideal trusted advisor profile. So not ICP, but ITAP. And we learned, because the first year that we were in this channel, we were like, wait a second, we have, look at our meetings. Like the metric was meetings. The more meetings we have, the more deals we're going to close. And that wasn't correlating. We're like, wait a second, we've had 30 meetings this month or something, or and maybe we've had one deal come out of that. Wait a sec, we need to really dial in here. And we found, there's trusted advisors that all they want, they're like, give us a quote. Immediately we say no. You want a quote, you don't want us to speak to your customer. I get it that a lot of the customers don't want to have endless meetings with endless suppliers, but especially for what we're offering, they need to understand more than it's not going to come across at black and white on a piece of paper. Plus we understand that if we don't establish at least some connection with the customer, there's a low likelihood that that's going to really go anywhere. And then also, really, what I think the trusted advisors are doing in that circumstance is it's 3 quoting, right? They're like, okay, we need another quote. Let's just go to these guys. And so we've turned that down. That puts you. We have a scoring system, and you get points off immediately if that's how we're transacting with you. Or we've learned that some of these trusted advisors don't have personal relationships with their customers. They're in the Rolodex, right? But to your point, they have not established a relationship with them. Again, very transactional. So they're like, oh yeah, we sold them something, we're going to try to sell them something else. And so when we go in there and maybe we do start to present and give a quote, they can't give us any intel as to, where we are. And we don't always expect to be, okay, you're our preferred provider. That's ideal, right? But we understand we might be one of three other or more providers. At least give us feedback, right? Like tell us this is, they like this, they don't like that, pricing, whatever. That's the whole reason we're having this relationship. And that to us is like earning the commission. So we've got a bunch of metrics like that. So it's, you're tracking on that one too. I think it's important.
I love it.
So what about security? Do you have any thoughts about how security is evolving and being sold in the channel?
So when I started in the channel, there were about 50 suppliers. I spoke to a TSD the other day. Actually, it was a week ago today, and they told me they had over 700 suppliers. So when I first started, my secret was I was the only guy in the industry that worked for a company that sold SD-WAN, which made it really easy to win business
Right.
because I had the
Right.
one widget everybody wanted, but nobody else was selling. Um, it's interesting because when I started, there were a lot of folks that we now refer to as transactional. A lot of trusted advisors out there selling the low hanging fruit, the 10x spiff on UCAS, maybe on a good day if the customer asks for it, contact center. But there's a lot of partners that are just selling connectivity, nothing more. Um, those are not your ITAP. They're not your ideal partner profile. But there's this elite group of sellers. Some of them are old, like you and I, that decided it was time. Sorry if I offended you in calling you old.
Oh yeah, you can see this totally it fit that description.
See, the nice thing for me is I've got a couple grays here and I've got nothing up top. Um, some of us old guys have adopted the newer technologies, cybersecurity and AI being on the forefront. For those of us that have, I think we're going to clean house. This is a conversation that MSPs have had for many, many years before the channel started having the conversation. But we're reaching this pivotal spot in the evolution of the channel where MSPs are now becoming agents and selling connectivity and contact center, and agents are now selling managed services, including but not limited to cybersecurity. My thesis is they're going to bump heads at some point, and the client ABC company is eventually going to say, well, wait, hold on a minute. I buy all of this as a service stuff from Eric, and then Lou's over here doing my managed services, but they're both telling me they can do what the other does. I'm going to just work with Eric, or I'm just going to work with Lou. Cybersecurity is the linchpin in that conversation. Cybersecurity is the thing that keeps business owners up at night. Cybersecurity is the thing that, and I hate that old adage, but cybersecurity is the thing that keeps C-level executives up at night. Because if you look at some of the historically large breaches, I'm in Minneapolis, I immediately think of Target. People lost jobs. People forget about the millions of dollars, forget about the
Hard loss.
the hard stuff. Yeah. Or what was it Cloudflare that had that days long outage a couple years ago that affected all the car dealerships across the country? If it wasn't Cloudflare, it was somebody else. I apologize. But the impact of not addressing cybersecurity as a C-level executive for the customer is their job, is the potential bankruptcy of their business. Cybersecurity is the hot talking point because everyone's arguing, well, Eric, sure, cybersecurity was, but now it's AI. No, because you can't have the AI conversation without having cybersecurity policies. Otherwise, you're just letting all your information, all your IP out into the public atmosphere. If you're General Mills or 3M or Best Buy, 3M's a great example. They have a cybersecurity AI policy. You can only use the AI platform that they programmed and built because it stays in the building. It stays in the 3M family.
That's right. AI security, AI governance is data governance, and data
Bingo.
governance is data protection, is cybersecurity. So You're 100% on. I'm glad you brought up AI because, we're obligated to speak to it.
We had to.
This is gonna be the AI secrets podcast maybe next year. But, no, it's really relevant because you're right. Cyber is, still new, and I can tell you as a practitioner, the things that we're seeing I've been doing this, for over 30 years now, roughly. So, professionally, and before that, I was dabbling myself in things that, we won't talk about. But the point is, like, the problems haven't changed. It's actually that's a shocking thing. So cyber is new to be sold in the channel. Cyber is new and exciting, and it's a door opener. That's 100%, and that's why we really encourage TAs to go out there and speak about it, even if they're not comfortable, because no one is going to say, or the people that say, when you ask them, hey, how are you feeling about your cyber program? If they say, yo, we got it covered, everything's great, the hugest red flag.
They're lying. They're lying to you.
No one has it covered, to the extent that they'd like it to be. And there's always maturity too. It's like, okay, yeah, we've got the basics down, but now we want to move to the next level. Those are the conversations we have. But it's really interesting because AI too. Yeah, now AI is dominating everything up until that bubble burst, but it's not going away. AI is relevant. It's definitely an accelerator. It's kind of like, going from the I don't know, horses by themselves to a chariot behind the horse, or a cart, like the wheel. Basically, AI is to tech as the wheel was to, farming and stuff like that, and commerce, because it's really an accelerator. But you wouldn't put your whole business model behind the wheel, right? You would say the wheel is a way to go faster, but the wheel is not, unless you're Goodyear or something, which they have an awesome commercial, by the way. But I want to go back to the what you talked about, the costs of a breach. You were talking about, like, every C-level executive is up at night because they're thinking, like, what if, and what might that cost? And you said, like, Target, et cetera, which that was through a third party HVAC vendor. That was one of the classics. And the costs are not just, okay, yeah, this is how much we had to pay for an IR firm. This is how much we had to pay for legal counsel. This is how much we had to pay to, do data ID protection for all the people that were hacked. There's regulatory fines. All that stuff too is a hard cost. Here are the soft costs. And again, this is what I've learned as a business owner now running a sales organization. What about your pipeline? Like, when the minute you give pipeline is so precious, right? And the minute you start to give an excuse to those prospects to go to your competitor, or for your competitor to have a reason to drive them away from you to them, that's what breaches are. There's a number of soft costs that you can't. Productivity. It's a 3 to 5 year cost, if not longer.
Yeah, because the pipeline dries up, and then your salespeople, some of your top salespeople are under the gun, they're under pressure, and they ultimately decide to leave the business. I mean, I think of it like we're going through, I don't know when this will air, but at the present moment, we're sitting through a government shutdown, and TSA and air traffic control are somehow deemed non-essential. So these are folks that for the foreseeable future are going to come to work and not get they will at some point get back pay, but some of them woke up 2 weeks ago and said, "Hey, if we go to a government shutdown, I'm gonna leave." And certainly you've got folks in the field that you can replace, but you've got folks at the top that are living paycheck to paycheck that say, I don't wanna live through another government shutdown. I don't know how long this is gonna be. We can't afford to go 4 months without. So people are going to leave. So yeah, to your point, the soft costs are astronomical and often not judged in
Yeah.
advance.
Yeah. Shameless plug here. We have a calculator that we post, and I'll, like, what are the real costs of a breach? And it does it even only over 2 years, I think. And that's just an idea, but it tracks. We've done a bunch of research and stuff. So yeah, the things like pipeline, the things like productivity, the things like additional investment in IT, the things like your cyber insurance premium, if you even had one, and if you can even get another policy, that's going to go through the roof, just like if you had, made a claim on homeowners or auto, etc. So, and they're getting much harder. It's interesting because with cyber insurance, we're seeing some of these policies were written like 5 years ago, where it was like, fog a mirror, tell us or whatever, we'll pay like this multi-million-dollar policy. I've still seen those because we do, breach response as well. So I've seen those, but they get paid. It's pretty shocking. But now the insurers have, the carriers have gotten really smart to all this, and they're like, here, the terms and conditions are like, if you give them any reason not to pay that claim, which in a security program, it's just one person reusing a password across multiple sites or something like that, they're going to say, sorry, you didn't have a reasonable security program in place, and we're not going to pay that claim. So those are all the soft costs. So it's kind of a tangent, but I think hopefully for people listening, these are the reasons that when you're having these conversations with your prospects or with your customers, and they're like, why should I even consider spending more on cybersecurity? These are the things, kind of answers you can give to them, or even just questions. Are you comfortable if something bad were to happen? Do you know all the costs that would be associated?
So I think the real value, as I see it, that you guys bring as a business is, if I'm an advisor, there's a good likelihood that I don't know the first thing about cybersecurity. So while the TSD may have given me a couple questions to ask on a spreadsheet, to identify a cybersecurity opportunity, I know that those businesses, the TSDs, are often constrained. They've only got so many engineers, where you are, as I understand it, a supplier that I can leverage to help me design and put together a cybersecurity uh, tool belt, if you will, to deliver to that end user customer. So I think there's a ton of value in what you guys are doing right now.
Appreciate that. Yeah, that's what we're here for. We say to the TAs, it's okay to say I don't know. It's okay to not, you can start that conversation, and if it starts to get technical, you say, well, let me bring in, a supplier like us, CDG. The team will come in, and then we'll start to. We're also asking why, and a lot of these podcast episodes, there's repetitive things. One of them is, don't just take when do you want a pen test? You want an assessment, like why? Because those things are just the beginning of what a full program looks like. And the only way to protect, a company these days is to really have a full program that is like lather, rinse, repeat. Is something that is repeatable, something that is able to be documented, and it doesn't matter about the tools. That's a real misconception, that there's a lot of money in sales and marketing, right, to be thrown at people about the silver bullet approach for cyber. The real value is when you have a program, and it's also not just throwing a body at it either, which is what we see a lot of mid-market companies doing, and that's where we play mid-market and enterprise. Mid-market, they'll throw a body at it, say, okay, or a couple buys, or we've got two people, maybe they're half IT, half security. It's not enough, and it's not the right strategy. You really need to have a formal program. So yeah, we are here when the TAs want to reach out and speak security to their customers. What are some other challenges you're seeing? We talked about AI, we talked about cyber. What are some challenges that you've had to solve recently, or that you're seeing kind of coming down the pipe?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for the channel is, for so many of us, myself included, having owned an agency at one point, I went at it without a business plan. And I think right now we're seeing the evolution of the industry. Private equity came in. You sat in the same meeting I did now 2 weeks ago. They talked about more than $2 billion has been invested, and the exponential growth that has happened. I think one of the biggest challenges right now is the big names in the industry, the Blue Waves, the Upstacks, the ARGs, Amplix, OneSource, some of those. They've got a business plan. They've got a business plan in part because most of them are backed by private equity or debt equity, so they have to have a plan. But then there's solopreneurs, guys like me, entrepreneurs, guys like you, that are going at it without a plan. They're walking into an opportunity unprepared for the scale of the opportunity. I think of some friends of mine in the Pacific Northwest. All they do is sell connectivity. That's it. And yet they're walking through. Listen, the connectivity nowadays might be 10 or 15% of the overall spend. If I'm going to go put effort forth to earning a client, I want to make it as sticky as possible. I want to get as much of the revenue as possible. But I also want to know what's going on in their network so I can make sure what I'm proposing is right. And so I think for us to be successful as an industry, and some of the TSDs are starting to do this, got to educate some, not all, of the advisors on how to build a scalable business. Because when I owned my own agency about 15 years ago, I was opportunistic. I'd call Fidelity National Title because I had done a big deal with them before, and I'd take my buddy Chuck to lunch and I'd sell him connectivity in the county that he was responsible for. But I didn't ask him for an introduction. I didn't have a business plan. I walked into an opportunity that was $1 million a month because they called me and asked if they could buy certain services. But I wasn't ready to have anything beyond the connect. That was just connectivity, $1 million a month in connectivity. So we've got to start really planning for our success. What are our goals? What are our objectives? What are the products that we're going to bring into every single client in 2026? Are we going to have the AI conversation? Are we going to have the cybersecurity conversation? And if so, what's my first line of defense when I don't have the answer? To your point just a minute ago, when someone asks me a question and the answer is I don't know, do I call CDG? Do I pick up the phone and call the TSD? At what point do I say, the TSD knows a little, or maybe they know a lot, but they don't have the resources. Getting them now is booked out as weeks in advance. I want to close the deal. So I think we've got to identify, the partners need to identify what is it that they want to sell, and it's got to be programmatic. You can't walk into an opportunity without expecting to ask the questions about AI or cybersecurity or BPO or whatever else is on their agenda.
Yeah, if you wanna be sticky, 100%, because, it's a solution sale versus, just a quick project or product sale, and I think that's what we've seen too, again, being, relatively new to this, understanding that, yeah, listen, $1 million a month sale, that's a much larger. I'd love to get there someday, but that's not the numbers we're putting up right now. Our numbers are lower, and therefore, when they're like, "Okay, I can do something transactional quickly, get this through 30-day close, sales cycle, or there's a 6-month, actually we just closed a great one in 60 days. So those sales cycles are now, shrinking, but let's say 60 days versus 30 days, and there's work involved. It's like, okay, I've got to have multiple meetings. We've got to scope back and forth, etc. They're gonna go, a lot of these TAs have decided, "Hey, we're just gonna go with connectivity," but to your point, that's the short-sighted, approach, which is kind of like lifestyle business versus scalable, saleable business, something that you could exit from and be rolled up with the PE firm with into, an Amplix or one of the other, large TSDs, or not TSDs, but TA firms now. So, it's interesting too because you mentioned the connectivity, again, going back to that, and security. What we've all Stefan from Avant is really famous for saying this, which is it's what's adjacent. If TAs don't understand security, they do understand connectivity and they understand DDoS, distributed denial of service, which would be um, security related, and it would take connectivity down. So that's how they can start to kinda get their foot in the door, and I spoke to another TA, recently, and that's what they said. They started really just kind of selling one piece. It was like Cisco Umbrella or something, and then that as they did that, they're like, "Wait a second, how does this thing work?" And they were curious. So, I think what you're talking about, Eric, is like these trusted advisors need to evolve 100%. But they also need to be curious. It's like, listen, what line your pockets, especially as you get older. You see a lot of people that are, later in their careers, or they've already had their careers, and this is a way to make pocket change. Great, they're that's a lifestyle company for them, and if they're solopreneurs or whatever. But if they, for the ones that are hungry that want to grow, they gotta curiosity has to be one of their kind of driving principles.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the opportunity has never been better, whether it's AI or cybersecurity. The opportunity at scale is never been better. And I don't know that it will get better. So when I started, back to our earlier conversation in this industry 25 years ago, about 17% of businesses made decisions, technology decisions through a channel. That number now, 25 years later, is somewhere between 76 and 82% of businesses are now making IT decisions through a channel. That means there's more buyers than there's ever been. That means with all of the sellers that are out there, all of the trusted advisors and some of the other channels, MSP, MSSP, and so forth, the opportunity at scale is is great. I mean, back in the day, I was selling UCaaS, but people had on-premise phone systems back then. There's still 40% of people still have on-premise phone systems. The opportunity is great. But the inverse of that is, and you may know the number, I don't, I would suspect it's in the low teens at best, have a cybersecurity position.
Oh gosh. I mean, we actually we're doing a study. We started for the first time last year an annual study. I think that's a good question for our second annual study, which is going to be coming up. We just started speaking to the firm today about, or yesterday about what we're going to ask, and I like that. How many companies actually have a security program, like a true formal security program? I can tell you right now. I mean, if it's out, even outside, even inside the Fortune 500, like, that's an effective conversation. They're throwing the money at it and they have a program, but is it effective? I can tell you right now, a lot of them, it's not, obviously. That's why they're in the news. But mid-market, below the enterprise, it's probably a low teens already. Because again, they're just throwing a person or two at it. They've bought a bunch of tools. That's not a security program. And that's what we're helping with, and that's what we're educating the channel with too, is that it's been a slog, not gonna lie, to really help the TAs understand, and what's helping drive that is the customers, thankfully, because the customers are like, "Okay, version 1 of this was we just need a bunch of tools," or whatever. Version 2 was, well, our IT people can handle it, and then they learned that the IT people actually can't handle it when they're not dedicated to cyber. They're it's just kind of a bolt-on. Then they said, "We'll get a vCISO," version 3. Well, one person as a vCISO, or virtual chief information security officer, saying, do this, do that, and then coming back, that's not effective either. So now our model is like version 4, Gen 4 of what security needs to be as an outsourced, when you look at it as an outsourced, provider. And that is a program, a repeatable program that you can do. So the market's coming to that, but, that's, peer-to-peer selling is what you're talking about, and that's the difference, and I think, where did you get those stats, by the way, the 70%?
That came from a TSD national event. I believe it was last year. I can look that up and track that down for you though.
That's awesome. I mean, I would love to, if you don't mind. I'm sure if it's published somewhere, but I wanna definitely have our marketing team understand that as well, because that's a big number to go from, like, teens, 14, 20% to 75%, but we all know it. Tell me the last time anyone that you've spoken to as a salesperson has even opened a deal based on a cold call.
Oh, no,
No.
everybody leverages a relationship.
Yep. No, I made that mistake in the early days of CDG. I was like, I got taken for a ride for one of these companies that are like, "We're gonna make 1 billion calls a day, and we're gonna get you all these meetings." And it was like, it reminded me of when I was like a teenager, and they had me selling like door-to-door China. I That was one of my jobs. Like, and the way they would get the people is it would be a sweepstakes. Like, "You want a sweepstakes," and then they would fill out, or no, you're entering a raffle, which there was no prize for the raffle. It was just a way to collect leads. And then I would go to these people's houses and they're like, "Who are you and why are you here?" And, "No, we don't want China." So, or flatware, or whatever it was I was selling. So I think that's cold calling is dead. I hate to say it. I think the what the channel is showing, the reason those numbers are going up is because, yeah, you with Slack, with Discord, with all the social media, LinkedIn. I mean, if you can, especially if you're a decision maker in a mid-size or large organization, if you don't have a network that you can reach out to, you've been living on Mars or something. There's just everyone is leveraging their networks, and that's where the trusted advisors fit in, right? They're the network. They're the person that these people should be reaching out to, and then boom, back to your original point, right? Is relationships.
That's really where it starts. But we also have to have relationships with the suppliers, got to have relationships with companies like yours. So when we ultimately need to transact or want to transact with you, we feel like we trust you. I think that's the biggest misperception in the channel is they'll do business with us. Well, a couple misconceptions, one of which is it takes time. As a supplier, it can take, this 2 to 3 years to really turn the corner in the channel. And a lot of that is establishing and maintaining relationships. People want to know that you're going to be around for the long haul. There's so much that goes into it, but we got to like and trust you. It goes back to cold calling doesn't work. I mean, if I look at you introduced me earlier as an author and a keynote speaker and all that, I just realized the other day, I did a quick run through of all the talks I've given over the last few years. I haven't gotten one of them from a cold call. They've all come from people that I know, or for those that think LinkedIn is a waste of time, or from LinkedIn. I got one too this week from LinkedIn. Hey, I love what you're doing on LinkedIn. We'd love to hire you to come and speak for us. The value of relationships is where I think many of us fail in sales. Because we treat it like it's a transaction and it's so much more than that.
Yeah. Yeah. People buy, you mentioned it earlier, people buy from people, they don't buy from businesses. That's why if you get up and, you might work for Xerox and then you go work for Rico, you know, all of a sudden those people are going to buy from Rico, not because Rico necessarily has a superior product, but they know Eric and they want to do business with Eric. They trust Eric. They have a relationship with Eric. So, um, yeah, kind of pivoting to the personal stuff. What do you have like a story about cyber that's affected you personally?
Oh, golly, a story about cyber that has affected me personally. Well, I think as an individual, the thing that comes to mind is the data breaches and the impact of those data breaches on us individuals. I get all the same phone calls you do. I get all of we had a huge storm about 2 months ago that tore up a bunch of trees, and every roofer on the planet is calling my cell phone. But beyond that, the breaches that impact me on a daily basis where I've got to, get a new debit card, or golly, the other day, uh, Verizon's network, I probably shouldn't have called them out, but Verizon's network was down across the country just a few weeks ago. And my understanding is it was a breach of some sort. They shut the network down in an effort to stop the breach. I just happened to walk into a store that day, in which point they told me, hey, we can't sell you anything today because we can't do anything. They were all standing outside. I walked up and thought there was some big party. I was going to get like a free piece of cake and a cup of water or something, but I was turned around. And so the impact, I mean, I can think of times over the years I've been at Starbucks. The impact of Starbucks. Here's a great story. Here's two quick stories. Do you know what Starbucks, at least when this happened to me, what their policy is when they can't process credit cards?
Close the store.
Free drinks.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
because they
Whoa,
don't want to lose you they don't want to lose you as a customer, so they'd rather give out free drinks. It's a brilliant
smart.
culture move in terms of creating the culture that you want. But I walked into Starbucks years ago. They gave me the drink for free, and I half-heartedly joked when she wouldn't take my debit card. I said I should have ordered something for my wife and kids. She said, "What does your wife want? And how many kids do you have?" Well, Lou, you know this. I have 7 kids. We got a lot of free
7
drinks
kids.
that day. Do you know what? Again, this a little dated, but Best Buy's policy when credit cards can be processed is to do the old triplicate form from when you and I were kids, under $1,000. In my mind, the number of credit cards after the cybersecurity event, when things get back up and running, that they process that get declined must be staggering. So
Right.
the impact of an event for me or for you generally is seen as a mild inconvenience, right? I can't get my coffee, or I can't buy my $4,000 TV, um, or my identity was stolen or something like that. But in the grand scheme of things, the impact of that is pretty minimal for even me where the breach has occurred. But again, going back, the impact of a Target or a Cloudflare or Delta Airlines or some of these others that have had significant incidents. It's jobs, it's unemployment, it's all sorts of things. And it's millions, if not billions of dollars annually.
Big time, big time. The businesses bear the brunt for sure. But yeah, gosh, 7 kids. I have so much respect for you, and you don't have a farm, which is real, or do you? Do you have a farm?
We have one animal. She is a dog. And 7 kids, 6 to almost 25 later this month.
Unbelievable. That's amazing. That's amazing. That keeps you very busy, obviously. And you wrote a book, You Are Enough. What can you tell me about that? I think I need to get a copy.
Send me your address. I know a guy. I'll send you a copy.
Maybe as long as it gets signed by the author.
Actually, totally digress. The guy that wrote the cover quote, you'll see Andy and I were together maybe 6 weeks ago, and he looked at me and he talked about giving away free books as a part of a way to like bring people in and keynote speak and all that. He said, oftentimes I will hand it to my seatmate on a plane as I get off. I will hand one of my books to someone I'm sitting next to. He says, and you can steal this and make it your own. He said, I will often hand it to them and say, hey, I'm done with this book and my wife really likes the author. So, short story, totally unrelated to tech. I wrote a book. I went on a journey. I'll ruin the ending a little bit, but we have an estranged relationship with our almost 25-year-old. We've not spoken in 8 years. And that's a lot of what the book is about. This idea that everybody we interact with in the channel or outside of the channel, every single person we interact with today is going through something. The loss of a loved one, an estranged relationship, divorce, miscarriage. The flip side of that is there's also really good things going on in the world. People are getting new jobs. People are getting promoted. People are getting married, buying houses, getting pregnant, all of those things. But the way we interact with people is often missed. We often miss the fact that we recognize something's going on. We don't know what it is. We're not asking the questions. I'm not leaning in saying, hey, Lou, how are you? And then saying, actually, Lou, how are you really? How's the week going? What I'm doing is I'm saying, hey, Lou, how are you? You're saying, man, I'm great. How are you? Saying I'm good. And then we jump into a podcast. The barista at Starbucks, the person bagging our groceries at Target, the guy that cut us off, the woman at the restaurant that gave us a bun when we said no bun. Man, for all we know, her mom just died and she's got to go to work to pay rent. And we don't take the time to interact with people. So I share some of the highs and lows of not just my life, but people that I've interviewed on my podcast, people that I've met candidly through LinkedIn that have shared their stories with me. In fact, there's a story about a woman in the channel in the book as well and how she met her husband. But it's been a great journey. I'm writing a second book. I just started. It'll be done. I haven't said when it'll be done. I'm going to say it'll be done by the end of Q1, published probably summer of next year.
Amazing. I mean, it's impressive to write a book. I love the premise of this first book, You Are Enough. And I love that premise, Eric, because I think that in today, the way that, we dipped into politics a little bit without, any political leaning on any side. Like, we just need to start speaking to each other. As a matter of fact, we need to start speaking to each other on both ends of the political spectrum together. Like, if you're, far left and, the other person's far right, you guys, everyone needs to start speaking and understanding that we're just humans, like, on this planet for a really short time. So sorry, you got me philosophical, man.
No, man, I love it. I'm 45. I'll be 46 in a few weeks, and um, about 3 months ago, I lost a relationship with my childhood best friend. We've known each other 40 years, and he called me guns a-blazing, politics ready, and we've disagreed on everything for 40 years, political and religious and otherwise. And I'm fine with his decision. It's devastating. I think about it a lot, but I can't change it. What I realized, uh, I was filling out a form the other day for a coaching thing I'm doing in January, and the question was, "What was your favorite book?" Now, my podcast is 150 some odd episodes deep. I've read nearly every book from every guest I've ever had on the show, so I've read a handful of books. And the one that really sticks is a book called Love is Free, Guac, like guacamole. Guac is extra. And it was written by the now former CEO of Chipotle. He started when they had 750 employees. He retired when they had about 75,000 employees. So he was there for significant growth. And he talks through the book of how he leads, how he hires, how he builds a tremendous culture, because candidly, I think they've lost their way a little bit as a business since he retired. But the thing that he talks about in that book that really sticks, based on what you just said, is we are more united than we are divided. And I'll get a little political here. I don't care whether you lean left or lean right. I enjoy hanging out with you. I'd love to grab a drink with you next time we're in the same room. And politics and religion and all those things aside, that's the little stuff. It may have a big impact, but we're more united. There's more that we have in common than we have that we don't have in common. And yet, here's the political part. The media wants to tell us otherwise.
Yeah, because we'll buy some more crap. I think we just need like an alien invasion, like literally aliens from another, galaxy to
I
come.
read on the news it's happening tomorrow at 3
Oh,
a.m.
perfect. All right, so we'll all get together. It'll be like Independence Day, but the movie that is. So, how can people connect? You've got a lot of ways to connect.
Channel folks can find me at thechannelstandard.com. My book and my podcast can be found on ericbrooker.com, or just find me on LinkedIn. My cell phone number is on LinkedIn. Feel free to call me. I'll give it to you now. It's 480-296-9777. I will make myself as available as I can.
That's bold. I'm impressed. That well, it's so hopefully, we don't have a huge audience, so that's probably safe actually.
Your mom will call me and thank me for coming on.
My mom's gonna be calling you after this. But Eric Brooker, thank you so much for coming. This has been super enjoyable. This conversation we've touched on a lot of things. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Great conversation.
Big time. And thanks to everyone else that's watching and or listening. If you learned something today, laughed or cried even, please tell someone about the podcast. Thanks again, Eric. This has been another exciting episode of Channel Security Secrets. See you next time. That's a wrap for this episode of Channel Security Secrets. Thanks for tuning in. For show notes, guest info, and more episodes, visit us at channelsecuritysecrets.com. Channel Security Secrets is sponsored by Cyber Defense Group. When it comes to protecting your business, don't settle for reactive. Partner with experts who build resilience from the ground up.